G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Blacksburg, USA. Thanks for your time today, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here.
Let's start with how we know each other. Ria from RPR Public Relations put us in touch. Thought you might be a great guest for us.
Yeah. Ria's our PR person who kind of sets me up with interviews, and excited to kind of have this conversation.
Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does, and how it makes money.
Yeah, so we make HEPA air purifiers, portable HEPA air purifiers. It was really a niche market before COVID, and then with COVID, it kind of exploded. We've started off by contract manufacturing and doing the design, and now we're in the process of starting to reshore manufacturing back to the US and making the machines ourselves, as well as doing all the marketing, distribution, pretty much from start to finish.
That's quite a growing trend in the US, isn't it? Reshoring manufacturing production.
Yeah, there's definitely a big push, and there's some, decent government money in certain sectors, such as chips, to not be reliant on Asia specifically. But there's definitely an interest. I saw where I lived, a lot of jobs went overseas in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and now there's this draw to bring back what we can.
How did you start out?
So I had if I go back a little bit, so I kind of got my business experience working at some large companies. I worked at 2 technology companies. The second one was Dell. And from there, I co-founded an e-commerce business with another guy, and we built that from 0 to 14 million. And I sold my part of that to start Oransi. So I used the cash to, get this business going.
Yeah, great. And that first business, e-commerce, maybe tell the audience a bit about what it sold and what year you started that and got out.
Yeah, so this was came out of the .com bubble burst, where tech wasn't a great place to be. We were going through round after round of layoff at Dell. And I started an e-commerce business with that guy at night, and we were selling products that required more of a consultative type of a sale. We saw Amazon was starting to really get traction, and they were really about low prices. And so we were selling things like tankless water heater systems, air conditioning systems. We got into some air filtration, a number of different niche sites that we created, through a platform that we developed.
Right. And what year did you start that and get out?
Yeah, we started in 2003 and I exited in 2009. And that's when I started Oransi.
Oh, great. Fantastic. And how big did you grow that team in that first business? So it's just the 2 of you that started, and where did you get to?
Yeah, I think it was around like 30 people. We weren't manufacturing anything ourselves. It was more of, we did the warehousing, customer service, sales, marketing, IT. That's kind of what our team did. And then we worked with, brands or contract manufacturers to make products.
Yep. Fantastic. And do you have any key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of Oransi? So you started in 2009.
Yeah, it was just me.
Yep.
At the beginning. And I'd read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, and it's like, I want to set this up as a lifestyle business. And I had 2 people. I was in Austin, Texas, and I had 2 people that I knew that did customer service, and everything else was outsourced at the beginning. And I kind of grew it that way for the first 4 or 5 years. In getting started and developing relationships with different factories to get products made and manage the marketing. and then outsourced to a number of different agencies the different functions. And so, while we only had 3 employees for a while there, we had kind of an extended team through agencies to get it started. And then as we got to COVID, that completely changed things, and we went to I think like 32 people
Yep.
pretty quickly, and just to manage that, as well as we in 2021 we merged with an electric motor company, which is the basis for the products that we're developing in Virginia, kind of for the go forward. And so I'm really excited about what we've got cooking for the future, and I see us, growing our headcount quite a bit going forward as we start to do manufacturing and assembly.
Yep. So you're still at 32 full-time equivalents now, or after the merger that grew a bit?
Yeah, right now. And then, we'll add people as we start manufacturing, and we're supposed to add, I think, in the next couple of years, 100 or so people.
Wow. Okay, definitely have to have you back on in a couple of years then.
Yeah.
And do you have any other key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth?
Yeah, it started off at zero in 2009, and we're been more in the 15 to 20 million dollar range.
Yep.
And I see us growing from there, especially as we introduce the products here with what we've got. It's the air purifier market got really crowded during COVID, and COVID more or less is over for most people, and so they're not buying air purifiers like they were before. And so we see a lot of change going forward in our industry, and so I think we're really well positioned with all the investment we've made in terms of product development.
Yep. And back in 2009, when you started Oransi, how old were you then?
How old?
14.
Oh gosh, I was gonna have to do the math to. So, oh yeah, 43. Sorry, my mic it just went
Cool.
silent.
Yep. 43.
Yeah.
Great. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
I don't know if I ever felt like I've succeeded. I don't know. Like, to me, it's always a continued work in progress and can always do things better. Um, I think you can look at the numbers, and if you're making money and you're growing, I guess that could be success. But for me, I'm not quite satisfied with where we are, and so I guess it's how you look at that. And so, in one sense, it's kind of course it's done well, but on the second side, I think it has so much more potential. I think we get to past 100 million, then that's kind of the area where I'm looking.
Yeah, great. So on the success front, I've got to ask, were you able to keep your Tim Ferriss dream of only working 4 hours a week?
Now that changed. I never worked 4 hours a week. It was more just the idea. And I think a lot of what he or Tim talked about in there was about the outsourcing aspect, and, finding people who are really good and, outsourcing it to them and managing those organizations or those functions. But yeah, I don't think I've ever worked 4 hours in a week.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
Wow. I guess, every market's different, but it's really competitive. And so I think it's key to understand your unique selling proposition, and like, why should somebody buy from you and what makes you different. Um, and and understand the customer, and are you really solving a problem that they have, or do you have something that's so good that they want to talk about? Is kind of how I think about that.
And you've mentioned funding Oransi from the proceeds of the sale exit of your first business. So any other funding sources you've taken on with Oransi, any other investors or?
No, we've never taken on investors. We have just traditional bank funding, like lines of credits and things like that for inventory, but that's um, to date pretty much been the extent. We purchased a factory that we have, but that has a mortgage. but it's also an asset that builds value. So it's a pretty good investment. But beyond that, we haven't needed to get outside capital.
That's great. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I got into this because my son as an infant struggled with asthma, and so it really left a mark on me, and I wanted to do something to help him and people like him. And so that's kind of what drives me a lot. So in a certain sense, I would say probably, but I'm also intrigued by AI and some of the things that are happening there, and so I'm not really sure. I mean, I probably would do this just since I know it so well. I mean, sometimes it's appealing to jump into something that looks great, but if you don't really know it, you don't know what you're getting into. So from I guess, a safe approach standpoint, I probably would do the same thing, but I think there's some really exciting things happening with AI, and it's a really interesting space.
Yep. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess for me, the most stressful was, um, we built, this was, I don't even remember what, 2014, 2015. We, signed up some distributors in China, and, they placed some orders and they placed some follow-up orders that were larger. And then one at the last second canceled it. And then I was kind of stuck with this inventory that I didn't really have an outlet for. And so that was pretty stressful, and it was a kind of a rookie mistake on my part not to get a substantial deposit down to kind of ensure that they took this product that we made for them.
Yep. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
That's an interesting one. I would say communication um is a big one. It's you know getting everybody on the same page. You may think everyone's working together and aligned, and kind of come to realize I have to say certain things three or four times or say it different ways for everyone to get on the same page. And communication is something that comes not naturally for me, and so I have to constantly remind myself to kind of check in and make sure that we're really all moving together.
Yeah, it's a big one. I think leaders and business owners, we think we communicate enough. Most of us, we're nowhere near enough frequency and clarity in where we're going, the vision, etc. Often you've got to repeat yourself 7 times before someone will even remember they've heard it once.
Yeah. It's like sometimes, or I even think things and I thought I've said it, and it's like, oh wait, I never really made that clear. It's almost always it's on me. um
Mm.
and it's just something that's just I have to keep relearning, I think.
Yeah, well, I made that mistake early on with one of my businesses. My 3 business partners and I would go away every quarter for a strategy weekend, and then one time we came back, and one of our longest serving team members asked me as I was walking past on a Tuesday, he said, "Oh, did you guys have a strategy weekend on the week? Just the weekend gone?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Oh, just like that you guys seem to have more energy. Would you mind telling us what's changed and where we're heading now?" And we totally forgotten to communicate it to the team. Yeah. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Well, I mean, growth is obviously a really good thing, and I kind of got my experience in the computer industry in the 90s, and early 2000s, which is when that industry grew really fast, and so that was what I was used to. During COVID is when we really grew, and it was challenging because there was more demand than supply, and and so what I enjoyed the least was there's so many missed opportunities just because you didn't have enough product or couldn't get product, and pretty much shut off advertising because there's no point. And you still were running out, and sometimes it'd be weeks or months to be able to fulfill orders, and then you're doing customer service, trying to keep those folks happy and set expectations. Meanwhile, it's like this huge opportunity that it's hard to go back in time and make more stuff. And so that was kind of extreme growth where it just kind of came out of nowhere. And so that was I think the hardest part. But I think if you have a good team and a good management team, you can manage growth, and it's just part of a normal process. But when it kind of hockey sticks up, and it's just, for me, it's just the lost opportunities is the part that I kind of struggled with.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I mean, for me, it's we make products that help people, and I read the reviews and hear the stories, and it's kind of makes a personal connection. And it's not just selling a product; it's helping people breathe better or feel better. And for me, that's kind of the most rewarding part.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Yeah, so I worked for the two Fortune 100 companies, and when I co-founded the e-commerce business, you go from having working at a big company, relatively stable job, and kind of a narrow field, to doing like everything. So,
Yep.
and so that's kind of constantly thinking about all different things that you never even considered before, all the different functions that need to get done. There's just, only one or two or three people to do them. And so you have to figure a lot of things out. And so it's just being able to adapt and learn, I think, is the biggest thing, especially if you're coming from, a big organization.
Yeah. The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's you have to understand, I think, the numbers, and I think you have to, know your people. I mean, those are kind of two completely different things, but I think they're both super important. So I think it's regularly checking in on people, and and seeing how everyone's doing, and making sure that your team is able to do their job the best that they can. And then also understanding the business and your numbers, and are you executing well. And it's just getting into that practice of managing that.
Jump over to growasmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, so we really added our team during COVID. And so um, it the we brought on some really good folks. I think in terms of the mistakes, it was being too eager to hire someone, or you meet someone and you didn't fully vet the person or look at where they were and what their growth potential was. Um,
So you
and
let your biases sneak in, I guess, if you haven't done enough vetting.
yeah, or it's like you're so busy, it's like I just need to hire someone to get someone you need to get someone to do the job, because it's like I'm underwater here.
Yep.
And then 6 months later, when things settle down, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that person's not the right person for the job. And then you have a bigger problem. And
Yep.
so to me, it was too eager to hire to kind of get a person in a position rather than getting the right person.
Yeah. Warm body syndrome. You end up with an arsehole, and 6 months later. Yeah. What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Yeah, again, it's so our team is I don't know, maybe not unique, but it's a bit we've got half the folks at our factory, and then we've got maybe the other half, or 40% are remote. And so in terms of culture, it's communication, because the people that are at the factory see each other, and you kind of have conversations in the hallway. And the people that are remote, you have to intentionally communicate with them, do Zoom meetings, because otherwise they can be completely left out or in the dark, and they're already at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of being connected with everyone because they're just physically not here. And so I think an important part of culture is making everyone feel like they're part of the team, and and I don't know how to do that other than really just through good communication.
And we did you already have some of the team remote before COVID hit? Obviously, it was a big change and movement when COVID came along. But was everyone in person before COVID, or you had some remote team members?
No, I started off remote by in 2009 by design, and then it's when we merged with the electric motor company and we're going to start to make our own products in our own factory is when we started to have the in-person component to that. And so that's just a different dynamic. When you start making decisions with people in the main office and the other half the people aren't there.
Yeah. And tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know. It's a great answer. I don't have a ton of hobbies. Like for me, I just like to work, and that's what gives me my dopamine. I have a great relationship with my wife, and I like to exercise and go out and do things. But I'm pretty much always thinking about work, and always working, and I think that works for me, and it keeps me happy. Um, but I know we're all wired differently, and most people kind of strive for more work-life balance. Mine is kind of more geared towards work, but that's really where I get my charge from.
Yeah. And how much professional development have you invested in yourself?
I do a lot of reading, watch keynotes. I'm kind of more interested in the marketing side of things. Is kind of where I spend my time and energy. I haven't really been to a conference. I can't remember since COVID. Everything's like a time warp, but I haven't done any kind of other professional development probably in 5 or 6 years in terms of a conference or course setting.
And have you had mentors or coaches along the way?
No, no, I've never had a mentor or coach.
And do you have a board of directors or advisors?
We have a board that's really me, my business partner, and three other senior folks from our company.
Yep.
But we don't have outside people on the board at the moment.
Right. And how often do you meet?
We meet every month
Yeah, great.
for half a day. Yeah, it's really good to kind of sync up and get on the same page, especially as we're um, getting our factory online and getting our products through the system. There's a lot to discuss.
Yes. Yeah. Now, Peter, you're one of the few that we've had on that's exited a business. So, you got any advice for the audience who may be thinking about exiting one day?
So, so when the previous business, it was a 50-50 ownership. And I remember, going through the process, it was a little bit, at the time we, decided we wanted to go different directions and we both wanted to basically be in control of the company. And after going back and forth, I decided that fine, I'll sell my half and start and build what I want to build. And I remember that the business attorney said that going into a business with a 50-50 partner is a bit like a marriage, and a lot of them end in divorce. And so and and so that's always stuck with me. And so I went through the exit. I probably, in my opinion, got a lot less than what it was worth, but I was really looking for a fresh start and to have just enough cash to get that business going. If I were to do it over again, I wouldn't have done a 50-50 partnership. Probably would have had a third person come in
Yeah.
to kind of balance things. But anyways, you don't know what you don't know. That
That's
was
right.
a
Yeah.
big learning lesson for me there.
Yeah, that is terrific advice. Thank you. All right, we're on to our final five questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Resources. You typically don't have the money, the team, the big companies have the brand name that just has instant trust and credibility baked into it. And, as a smaller business, you're not known. And so, it can be hard to get traction. And so, but you have some advantages in terms of often being more innovative or flexible or um, changing things pretty quickly. But I think it's being able to read the market and understand what your product or service is and how to fit that into the marketplace.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Yes, as I said, I read marketing books. I like This Is Marketing by Seth Godin.
Yeah, he's great.
I think yeah, we've kind of followed a lot of his advice in building our product. And the key takeaway that I have from that is to build marketing into your product. And I know from personal experience, if you build an average product, you're going to spend a ton of money in advertising. And if you can build marketing into the product, it should scale significantly better.
Yeah, I've had a look on your website. Your products look really beautiful. They look amazing. So yeah, well done.
Yeah, thanks.
Have you read Donald Miller's Story Brand book?
No, no, I haven't read that one.
I'll shoot that through to you later on, but it's quite good. Clarify your messaging. As you know, copy's really powerful in marketing. It's not just all pretty images, but yeah, that's something we've been using for a while now and highly recommend it.
Okay, great.
Any great podcasts, online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I listened to, I don't know if you listened to the How I Built This with Guy Raz. He talks with kind of bigger business
Yeah.
folks to get their story, and kind of he's really good at asking questions and getting the essence of what the journey was for a person that's built a business. And I think everyone's successful that's on there. I don't think he has cases and people that didn't crush it, but it's really interesting to hear the kind of the backstory and what people were facing on a personal basis, and how they overcame the challenges to do what they did.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
For us, I mean, gosh, we use so many tools, but a lot of it's just around communication and coordination. And so like Slack is one that we use just to get it. You can have remote people um, communicating really well together, as well as the folks at our office. And that's um, I think probably one of the biggest ones that we have in terms of just really being able to segment people into specific groups and have kind of online conversations and do things really efficiently.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
Oof.
So it was
Uh,
20 years ago now. It was 2003 you started the e-commerce business.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't know if I think if you're like in your 20s, you have 50 years to work and you don't have to crush it on day one. And so it's like, it's a long process, and it takes longer and costs more than you think um, to get there. And so I think it's about, having fun with the journey. I also kind of think about Simon Sinek talks about, the finite versus infinite game, and really business is an infinite game, and it's about staying in business. And so,
Yep.
um, it's not like you need to dominate at the beginning, but kind of have the mindset that, if you're healthy, most people probably are working into their 70s. And so it's just kind of getting your head around that. What are you going to be doing for the next several decades? Um, and for me, it's just having the right mindset to, you don't have to just destroy things, or just, knock it out of the park at the first month or the first year. It takes time to build, something that's going to last.
Have you heard of the 4x2 rule?
No.
This VC, when I was living in London, I heard him speak. He gets hit up for money a lot, obviously, by entrepreneurs. And he says to them, this rule he made up 4x2, which is it's either going to take 4 times as long and cost twice as much, or take twice as long and cost 4 times as much. So you get to choose which path.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Peter. I really enjoyed our chat. Congratulations on the growth and Oransi and the passion you have for the business. Love the niche, growing from 1 to now 32 team members after the merger and doing between 15 and 20 million. That's phenomenal growth over the last 14 years. Congratulations to you, your business partner, and the team.
Yeah. Thanks, Troy. I appreciate it. Yeah. And thanks for having me on.
We're getting some great iTunes reviews. For those listening, please pop over to your podcast app and leave us a review.